Hello, everybody, and happy St. Patrick's Day. It is the top of the hour, so we are going to begin our webinar. My name is Allison, and I am the content manager here at Amicus Next. Today, we are going to be featuring the Amicus Court Rules for Amicus Attorney, which are slated to go live to our users in the next couple of weeks. But before we begin, here's a couple of housekeeping notes. Please feel free to ask us questions throughout the webinar in the questions box. We're going to answer them at the end in the order that they were received. This is going to be a 15-minute demonstration with a 15-minute Q&A, and it's going to be led today by our very own David Lamb. David is a product trainer who has been with the company for a little more than 8 years. He is our international man of mystery as he sits in our Canada office, and this is really his labor of love. So please take it away, David.
Thank you very much. I hope everybody can hear me.
Coming in loud and clear.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so thank you all for joining us today, and stand by for 15 action-packed minutes, because in today's webinar, I'm going to give you an overview of an exciting new feature that's going to be introduced, as Allison said, very shortly. Abacus, and now that it's in Amicus, Amicus Court Rules. Now, of course, court rules govern procedures for the conduct of business in the courts, and they often concern such matters as time limitations, pleadings allowed, and grounds for appeal. And of course, each jurisdiction has its own court rules. Now, the Amicus Attorney Court Rules feature lets you create, modify, and delete court-based events on your Amicus Attorney files. A court rule defines a series of standard tasks with their deadlines for a particular legal action in a particular court, federal, state, or county level. And this is going to save you time and help ensure that no steps in executing a client matter file are missed. Now, creating a court rule event requires a different procedure from the standard way of creating Amicus to-dos at appointments. Instead, we use special functions accessed from the Amicus files and calendar modules, and these functions are available only if your firm has a subscription to at least one court rule set. And the court rule events are treated as a special class of Amicus events, and each set of court rule events is treated as a group. And each event in a group contains information that relates it to the other events in the group. And a reference field in each court rule event allows additional relevant information. So when a court rule feature becomes available, I get relevant information to be recorded. Now, when the court rule feature becomes available, you won't have to install any software. So you won't get special software for court rules. When your firm purchases subscriptions for one or more Amicus court rule sets, then they'll become available. Now, just as an FYI, if you're thinking of using court rules, make sure that your Amicus calendar, which is in firm settings, is up to date. This is very important, that your calendar must be up to date. Now, just another note about court rules. They're treated as a special class of calendar event in Amicus, and a file may have one or more groups of court rules on it. Now, each group will contain a trigger event, which you will see, whose date determines the events, the dates calculated for all of the other events in the group. Now, an example of a trigger event could be a court appointment. A group may also contain one or more parent events whose dates determine the dates of further dependent child events. Now, you can edit court rules in Amicus just like other events. However, if court rule events need to be rescheduled, then it's best to use the modify court rule events function to recalculate all of the events. And again, if people assignments need to be changed, you use the modify court rule events function and also deleted. Okay, so you can create court rule events on a file in the files module or in the calendar module, and we are going to take a look at doing it from the files module because it's going to give us a better view of these events. Now, before you start, we're going to go into our administration, and we're going to go into firm settings. And under calendar, once you subscribe to court rules, and you click in here, it's going to show you all of the court rules that you've purchased a subscription for. Now there's a little checkbox, show all court rule sets, including unlicensed. So you would get a list of every single court rule that is available. Mine are all licensed. If they are unlicensed, you would see them grayed out. So this will show you at a glance how many of the court rules you subscribe to. Now this is important. If you're calculating court rule events and it falls on a weekend, what do you do? Do you move it to the Friday? Do you move it to the Monday? Or do you schedule it anyway? So that's up to you on how your firm operates, but that is an important firm-wide setting. And I'm going to leave it to schedule anyway and click OK. Okay, so let's get right at it. Let's open our Files module. And let's go to the Cooperman v. Cooperman file and open that file. And let's just expand it. Now, to get to the court rule set, we go to Actions on the top menu bar, and now you notice that we have Court Rule. And the first step is, of course, to select the rule set. This is a list of all of the rule sets that we are licensed for, all of our available court rule set. Now, if there is already a rule set assigned to the file, you'll see the rule set listed on the right. Again, you can have more than one rule set on a file, but you can only load one rule set at a time. So let's select the rule set that we want. I'm just going to select anything, California Central District Federal Rules. I have no idea what this is. Of course, you as legal professionals will know exactly which rule set you want. The link, and there it is in current selection. Then click OK. Now, next we go to Actions and Court Rule. You can see that our rule set is selected. Now we're going to create the court rule events. Now, many of the court rules, of course, have the subset, the action, of course, that you're going to take, and you'll see these here on the left-hand side. Select the rule set that you want. So let's do bill of costs. I'll pick one, and there it is. And select, and click OK. Now the Create Court Rule Events window opens. At the top, you're going to see the assigned file, which is our Cooperman v. Cooperman file. And these are all of the firm members that are going to be assigned to the events. You could change this at this point. And say, for example, these are all of the firm members assigned to this file. If we wanted to remove any, we certainly could. I'm just going to leave them. So who is going to be assigned? You have the option to assign a contact here so that you could see these events on the contact. Next, court rule reference. You can enter some text here, how you want it to appear in the reference field for each of the court rule events. So you can put in your own text so that when you look at the events, you will know what they are. Now, to-dos. Schedule the to-do start date when. You could schedule them all to start today so they would all go on the calendar today, or you can start them X number of days before their deadline. So instead of seeing all of the court rules appear in my to-do list and as tasks starting today, I could say just start them on my calendar, say for example, 7 days before that deadline. Now, this does not affect the event's deadline at all. Now there's an option at the bottom, mark past to-dos done. If you check this, any of the to-dos that have a deadline before today will be marked done. And this would be helpful if you're applying the court rule in the middle of an ongoing action. Okay, so we've set up our options. Now we click Calculate. Now under the Calculate tab, you set the date of the trigger event. This is the date upon which all of the calculated dates will be based. And you can specify the type of event. Is it an appointment or is it a to-do? And so we could say it is an appointment, put it onto the calendar, say we're going to go forward to July the 19th, and the start time for that appointment, say it's from 10:30 to 11:30. And now we can give this event a title. And so we could say This is going to be CR for court rule. You can give it any title you want, something that means something to you. Trigger event. Okay. You can enter any text you want into the main note of that event, just to let you know what this event is all about. So you have that option. And then when you're finished, select calculate. Okay. Now in the pane on the right, you'll see a list of all of the events. Now note in the upper right is the number of events in the list. 7 events are in our list. Now, for any appointments, the date is shown, and there's our trigger event right there. And for to-dos, the deadline is shown. So that's important. This Wednesday, July the 19th, that is the actual date of that appointment. These are all to-dos. They are showing you the deadline date. Now you can show the details. If I click the details, you'll see here the trigger event. You'll see what this actual to-do is, how it's been set, so all of the details of that event. And you can hide those details if you want. Now there are some little icons up here on the left of each event, and these icons indicate what relations are defined for an event. So for example, this is a parent to one or more child events. For example, the trigger event, of course. And this is not a child event to any other events. This is a parent event. You can see that right there, but it is also the child event. So that will let you know their relationships. Now, when you select any of the events, you're going to see little icons. So let's select that. You'll see some little icons here. The green icon means that it is a child event. And so that's what it tells you, a little green icon. If there was a little brown up icon, it means that it is a parent event. So our little icons tell us if they are parent or child events. Now, if you need to reschedule an event, you can do it right now. If you select that event, and you can then reschedule it. And you would just click reschedule and select its new date. Now remember that this is the deadline date because it's a to-do. And you can go back to any of your other events and you could reschedule them here. Now, if we reschedule a parent event, any of the child events will automatically be rescheduled. So let's change this date to the 18th. Okay. And you can see there's our little brown icon that I mentioned before. And let's reschedule. Okay, so it would reschedule it for us. Okay, now what we need to do is the next step is to select the steps you want to save as events. So I'm going to select them all. Okay, so you'd select all of the steps that we want. Now you may not want to select all of these steps. You may have only selected steps. And then what you need to do, if you're ready to go, is create the events. Now to see the events, of course, on a file, if we go to events and all file events, these are our events now in Amicus. And so that's how we can basically use these. Now, of course, once they are events, you can modify these events and you can change them. Now you can change them individually. For example, we could go in and change the deadline date on this, and it would change it. But if we wanted to reschedule any dates that were linked to it, say it had child events, you would have to go back up into your actions and court rules, and you would have to modify your court rule events. It's fairly easy, as you can see. The main thing I've found is knowing which court rules to select. I'll leave that to you folks. as legal professionals to do that. And again, it's going to be very simple. There's no additional software, so you won't get a disk or a download for court rules. That will come to you when you change your subscription and purchase the court rule events. And there they are. These are, of course, going to show up in the calendar, and they are going to show up on the file. There, Allison, I kept it to 15 minutes. And so I think we're going to be open for some questions.
Yes, and we actually received some really great questions during your presentation, which was fantastic, may I add. So the first question is from Lauren. Is this replacing the current way court rules are added to matters?
Um, well, there was a program that was available um, that is no longer supported in Amicus. And this, of course, is one of the reasons that we're introducing this program, because, of course, we want you to be able to continue to use court rules, especially in a place like California where they are quite complicated. You could still, of course, add events on your own. You can still use precedents if you use precedents. This doesn't affect any of the other ways that you enter events into your Amicus files. It's just an extra that you can use.
Perfect. Thank you so much for answering that. The second one is also from Lauren, or Lauren, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Is Amicus a new program?
No, Amicus has been around for quite a long time. Um, let's see, it's got to be back in the and it was around a long time before I came here. We started off actually it being written for a Mac. That's how long ago it was. It was a lawyer who worked here in Toronto, and back in the paper days, he thought, "Gee, we've got these new computers, but I'm still using paper." So he invented this program that brought all of his practice information together on his computer screen and used it. And other firm members there, other lawyers, would say, "Hey, that's kind of cool." And so he formed a company and he produced Amicus Attorney, and it's been around for quite a long time, so it's not exactly new.
Perfect. That's really interesting history. I myself never heard the history of Amicus, so thank
Yeah.
you for sharing.
Okay.
The next question is from Susan. She says, the event titles do not show the topic. For example, serve objection to, and then, what is it to serve objection
Yeah,
to?
you can change those event titles. I didn't show that. We didn't have a lot of time, but you can certainly change that. And in the notes, you can add things too. So, this is, remember, the court rules are generic, but you can, just like I changed the title of that first parent event for our um, to whatever I want, there are places where you can change these event labels.
Perfect. Thank you. Fully customizable.
Yes, indeed.
That's what we like to
Yeah.
hear. The next question is from Frank. And Frank is asking, how often are the court rules updated?
Well, they actually have a team of paralegals that are constantly looking at the court rules. And when there is an update, then they go in and they update it. And then it's released. And remember, these are um, no software to install. So once it's released, then they will update. I'm not a programmer. I can't tell you how they do this wonderful stuff automatically, but they will do it. So they don't say every 10 days or every 15 days. It is when there's changes to these court rules, then they make the changes. And again, it's actually paralegals who understand these court rules that actually author these court rules.
Perfect. The next question is from Susan again.
Yeah.
Will the events triggered by the trial date contain more information, or do we need to modify each entry created?
Um, well, I always tell people that Amicus isn't psychic, so it really doesn't know what you want to label things specifically. So we can put in some generic labels, but if you want to change them, again, you can go in and put in very specific labels for you. Again, just like you saw in the trigger event, I can call it exactly what I want to call it.
Great. And I think that is all the questions. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time to write in the last question. Going once, going twice. Okay, well, I think that, oh, there we go. um,
My abacus does not look like this. No, because this is not abacus. This is Amicus Attorney.
yeah, so they're just two different
Yep.
programs. So
Yep.
Abacus Next has the Abacus Private Cloud, we have
Yep.
Abacus Law, and we have Amicus Attorney.
Yep. Both are case management programs, both excellent case management programs. Depending on your firm's needs, you have lots of choice to make.
And so I think that that is the last question today. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, happy St. Patrick's Day. Thank you, David,
Okay.
um, for uh, joining us today. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to email webinars at Abacus Next, and I can forward them on to David and make sure that we wrap everything up for you. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and that concludes our presentation.